So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, entitled Prayers by Queen Kunti. Text number 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tata Paramahansanam. Tata Paramahansanam. Muninam Amalatmanam. Muninam Amalatmanam. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam. Katam Paschemahi Striyaha. Katam Paschemahi Striyaha. Tata Paramahansanam. Muninam Amalatmanam. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam. Katam Paschemahi Striyaha. Tata Paramahansanam. Muninam Amalatmanam. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam. Katam Paschemahi Striyaha. Tata Paramahansanam. Muninam Amalatmanam. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam. Tata Paramahansanam. Muninam Amalatmanam. Bhakti Yoga Vidhanartam. Katam Paschemahi Striyaha. Tata Paramahansanam. Ladies? Tata Paramahansana. Tata, besides that, Paramahansanam, of the advanced transcendentalist, Muninam, of the great philosophers, are mental speculators. Amalatmanam. Those whose minds are competent to discern between spirit and matter. Bhakti Yoga, the science of devotional service. Vidanartam, for executing. Katam, how. Pashyema, can observe. He, certainly. Striyaha, women. Translation. You yourself descend to propagate the transcendental science of devotional service unto the hearts of the advanced transcendentalists and mental speculators who are purified by being able to discriminate between matter and spirit. How then can we women know you perfectly? Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Even the greatest philosophical speculators cannot have access to the region of the Lord. It is said in the Upanishads that the supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, is beyond the range of the thinking power of the greatest philosopher. He's unknowable by great learning or by the greatest brain. He is knowable only by one who has his mercy. Others may go on thinking about him for years together, yet he is unknowable. This very fact is corroborated by the queen, who's playing the part of an innocent woman. Women in general are unable to speculate like philosophers, but they are blessed by the Lord because they believe at once in the superiority and the almightiness of the Lord. And thus they offer obeisances without reservation. The Lord is so kind that He does not show special favor only to one who is a great philosopher. He knows the sincerity of purpose. For this reason only, women generally assemble in great number in any sort of religious function. In every country and every sect of religion, it appears that the women are more interested than the men. This simplicity of acceptance of the Lord's authority is more effective than showy, insincere religious fervor. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukho Karachi Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Paramanam Namaravam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. So, Queen Kunti, who is in the position of being Krishna's aunt, right? So, as Krishna's aunt, she's in a superior position, being an older relative, and Krishna offers his pranams to Queen Kunti. But she has understood that Krishna is just playing the part of her nephew. But in actuality, he's the Supreme Lord. So Kunti Maharani, she knows this. She understands. And we can see from the previous verses. She's offering her obeisances. Namaste Purusham Tvadyam Ishvaram Prakrite Param. She's offering her obeisances to her nephew, so-called. Right? Why? Because he's the controller of all the Prakriti, all the material nature. Right? And she understands that the Sarvabhutanam, that the ordinary living entities, they can't understand they can't appreciate his position. Why not? Because he has covered everything by a curtain. His curtain of Maya. Maya Javanik Akshanam. He's got a curtain of Maya that he pulls across and bewilders everyone. And she gives the example just like an actor on the stage. Huh? So, in this verse she's mentioning that he comes down, he descends into this world to teach the transcendental process of devotional service. Right? Prabhupada mentions in the purport that just because one is a philosopher or one is a scholar still doesn't give them access to the region of Krishna. Who can be aware of Krishna? Who is Krishna? What are his transcendental qualities? Who has access? Prabhupada mentions in the purport, Krishna, whoever Krishna gives his mercy to, that person has access to Krishna. Krishna is completely independent, Svarat. He can do as he likes. He can give his mercy to whoever he likes. It's not necessarily that one is a big philosopher or a Sanskrit scholar or an Indianologist, as they say in England, Indianologist, that they have access to Krishna. No. Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad-gita, you can understand this transcendental science. Why? Because you're my devotee and my friend. So Krishna, he's the friend of everyone. Suridam Sarvabhutanam, the friend of all the living entities. He's not partial to big philosophers. Whoever has love for Krishna, they are very fortunate. And that love for Krishna is obtained by the mercy of Krishna. Krishna says in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, Yeyatamam prapadyante tatams tadaiva bhajamiyaham. All of them as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So if we are genuine and sincere to try to please Krishna, he'll reciprocate with us. Right? He'll reciprocate with us in various ways. We're here in this material world because we wanted to ignore Krishna and our relationship with Krishna. Actually, we can't be without relationship to Krishna. Right? We would cease to exist. In the spiritual world, that relationship with Krishna is known as Chinmay Ras. It's a position of the servant and the served. The living entity in its constitutional position is serving the supreme object of service, which is Krishna. So somehow or another, due to the misuse of the minute independence of the living entity, that living entity tries to serve himself. And so the relationship changes from Chinmay Ras to Atma and Paramatma. Relationship is there. That relationship has become covered over. Covered over by the modes of material nature, by the senses, the organs of action. And the living entity is engaged in trying to derive happiness from those covered over elements. So right from the very beginning of Krishna's instructions to Arjuna in the Bhagavad-gita, what is he explaining? He's explaining, we're not this body, you're not this body. Nahanyate hanyamani sharide. Only the body can be killed. The soul is eternal. In various ways, Lord Krishna is explaining to Arjuna the nature of the soul, the eternal soul. So we can come closer to understand by the examples. Krishna says, just as you pass in this life from boyhood to youth to old age, similarly you pass into another body of death. So Krishna is giving these examples. As you take off old and worn garments and put on new ones, so the soul changes bodies. Different examples, practical examples so that we can understand intellectually. However, there's two types of knowledge. One is Gyan, theoretical, and one is Vigyan, practical. So, although great philosophers may come to understand, as it's mentioned in the verse, the difference between matter and spirit philosophically or theoretically, to actually be able to understand practically how they're not the body, they require the mercy of the Lord. It's by His mercy that one can understand. So, it's mentioned in the 5th canto that only by service, only by surrender to a devotee of the Lord, one who has smeared the dust of a Mahatma on his head, means taking the mercy, can this knowledge be understood? Realization, I'm not this body, I'm the eternal spirit soul, I'm meant to serve Krishna. And in the 5th canto, Rishabdev also explains, if you don't have that mercy, then the gates of hell are wide open. And Krishna also explains, if you have the mercy, even a little bit of the mercy, you're protected. Even a little bit of the mercy, you're protected from the greatest kind of fear. And what is that greatest kind of fear? Prabhupada explains in the purport in the Bhagavad-gita to the verse Naha Brikno Nastosti Pratyavayo Navidyavate Swalpam Api Apidarmasha Trayate Mahato Bayat. The greatest kind of fear for the living entity is after having come in come into the human form of life to slip back down into the animal kingdom, to the animal forms of life. So a little bit of devotional service can protect one from that. Srila Prabhupada mentioned, if someone gets Krishna Prasadam, right? If someone gets Krishna Prasadam, they'll at least get a human birth. People are performing so many sinful activities, that they're bound to take birth as animals. The Prabhupada explains that the meat eaters, they're so fond of the blood of the animals, right? The poor, innocent animals. Lord Buddha came just to relieve the suffering of the animals. People were using religion as an excuse for running slaughterhouses and meat eating. So they're so much fond of blood. Prabhupada just explains, in their next life they can take birth as a mosquito, and they can fill their whole belly with blood as a mosquito. So people are performing so many sinful activities which restrict them from understanding their real identity as the eternal spirit soul. And they slide down back into the animal species of life. So unfortunate. Manda sumanda matayo manda bhagyo padrutaha. Very unfortunate. So Srila Prabhupada, he is kindly started this Krishna consciousness movement just to give people an opportunity to become pious, to become elevated, to come to the platform of a Haituki Bhakti. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. Lord Chaitanya wants us to come to the platform of unmotivated devotional service. Now our devotional service has so many unwanted characteristics. Yes, we're chanting, but our chanting is filled with offenses. Therefore, the unwanted things that are within the heart are not being cleared out. One time Srila Prabhupada said in a lecture, it's not very hard to understand who is a devotee, who is a Vaishnava. A devotee, a Vaishnava, they're not jealous. They don't have any jealous nature. If someone is jealous, they're not a devotee. They're not a Vaishnava. So originally this enviousness, this is envious of Krishna, because we see that Krishna is enjoying in the spiritual world with his devotees, and we think, well, I can enjoy, why can't I enjoy like that? And as soon as we think like that, as soon as we have that mentality, we're in the material world. That mentality does not exist in the spiritual world. Krishna is the center of everyone's attraction. Krishna is the most beautiful person. Right? Krishna's qualities are so enamoring and admirable and lovely that everyone in the spiritual world is only focused on Krishna. But there has to be some place for the living entities that want to be in competition with Krishna. They're not the enjoyers, but if they want to try and be the enjoyers, he makes a place that's this material world. So this material world, it's not our original place. It's not our real place. It's not advisable to stay here. Srila Prabhupada says, rotting in the material world. So the great souls, they make a bridge through the process. And they cross that bridge themselves, and they go back to the spiritual world, and they leave behind that bridge to go from this material world to the spiritual world. So what is that bridge? It's mentioned here, Bhakti Yoga. The process of Bhakti Yoga. Atha Shri Krishna Namadi Nhabhaved Grayam Indriyai. That you can't understand Krishna by your materially contaminated senses. It's not possible. But one can purify the senses by engaging them in the service of Krishna. And that begins by engaging the tongue. Srila Prabhupada explains there's two businesses of the tongue: vibrating and tasting. So Bhakti Yoga means vibrating the holy name of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. The tongue is always busy talking about something, right? Cricket scores, or what the government is doing, right? Who cares what the government's doing, right? They're not going to save me at the time of death, are they? The Democratic Party, the Republican Party, this party or that party can't save me. There's only one party that can save me, Krishna's party, right? If we're part of Krishna's party. But in order to be part of Krishna's party, we have to be genuinely attracted by Krishna. Nothing else. Nothing in this material world has any value if it's not related to Krishna. Nambina kichu nahi koarda choda bhuvanamaje. Bhakti Vinod Thakur explains, except for the name, the holy name of Krishna, there's nothing to be had in the 14 worlds. People in the villages in India, they become attracted to come and live in the city, right? They think Bombay, right? They come from the village. They see that so many actors in the past came here and started their acting career and became very big. So many examples. Many of them live right here in Juhu, right? But what is this Bombay? First of all, it's a pretty crowded place, isn't it? Right? The trains are crowded, the lines are crowded, the buses, everything is crowded, right? There was one devotee, his name was Mahamantra. He worked in the BBT. He was our production manager for about 5.5 years. He left his body in Vrindavan last year. So when he came from Mirror Road, he would get up very early in the morning and do his devotional service, and then he would come to the BBT from Mirror Road. But he was so tired, he used to just fall asleep and standing up because it's very difficult to get a seat. But it's so crowded, you can fall asleep and you won't fall over because all the people are holding you up, right? So I used to fall asleep. And the people used to play a trick with him. He would come to Santa Cruz or Villiparli where he's supposed to get down, but they wouldn't tell him, right? So they'd let him get all the way to Dadar, and they say, "Hey, Maharaj." And then he'd look and see it was Dadar, and he'd have to jump out of the train to take the train back to come to Santa Cruz, Villiparli. Right? So, this is Bombay. What is the big deal, right? But even if you have a plan or become attracted by the heavenly planets, the persons who engage in Vedic sacrifices, their attraction is to go to the heavenly planets. What is that heavenly planets? It's also temporary. It's not permanent. Huh? Did you know that by chanting the holy name with offense, you'll still go to the heavenly planets? By Namaparad, you'll go to the heavenly planets. But what's the benefit of that? After living in the heavenly planets for, say, according to our calculation, there it's 100 years, but our calculation, it may be 150,000 years. After 150,000 years, then what? Back to Mrityalok. And in Mrityalok, what is it? Kali Yuga. So right now, we're about 5,000, a little over 5,000 years into Kali Yuga. How many are left? 400,000. So even if you go there for 150,000 years by your Namaparat, you come back, you're 150,000 years into Kali Yuga. Things are so bad now. What do you think they'll be like in 150,000 years? Do you want to be here? Huh? Then don't do Namaparad. Be careful how you chant. Chant properly. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. And to chant pure Nam, Shuddh Nam, it's not an easy thing. It's not by our own effort, although we must make an effort. We must try to attract the attention of Krishna by making that effort, right? Ultimately, it depends on the mercy of Krishna, and He's independent. He can give it. Look at, He gave His mercy to Queen Kunti, a lady, right? Not a Sanskrit scholar or some big philosopher, right? She's, by her own admission, we're simple ladies, how can we understand? So Krishna is independent. He can give His mercy to whoever He likes. But we're dependent on that mercy. Therefore, Prabhupada explains to us how we should chant, how we should do devotional service with dependence, right? Great dependence, like a child crying out for its mother. Huh? So, if we want to attract the mercy of Krishna, there's one particular verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's recommended that we make a necklace out of this verse and we hang it around our necks to always remind us. What is that verse? Tunichena tororapi sahisnuna manadena manadena kirtaniya sadahari. Humble. Humility. This is the key factor to attract the mercy of Krishna. Yesterday, our class that we had where the video by, his name used to be Ganesham Das Bhakti Tirtha Swami, right? So he was explaining so nicely, right? One day he went in to meet Srila Prabhupada, and because of his book distribution and the Eastern Europe countries, all communist countries, Srila Prabhupada rubbed his head and embraced him. The next day, and he said, I was feeling very proud that Prabhupada, he embraced me. Prabhupada embraced me. Malame, mujhe Prabhupada langa kiya. Right? Proud. Right? The next day he went, he was reading his activities in the Eastern European countries, and Prabhupada strongly said, always remember that Krishna is the cause of everything. Okay? But we're not the doers. Right? What do we learn from that? We're not the doers. If anything, the devotees always ready to give credit to Krishna and his spiritual master. Srila Prabhupada was giving a class in Los Angeles, 1975. And at that time in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles temple was booming. Lots of devotees. There were so many properties on Watsika Avenue. You know, Prabhupada's very expert, very intelligent, very expert. He guided the devotees how to do things. They got the money together. They made a down payment on a property just opposite the temple. It had 4 flats in it, right? So they were paying the bank note on that property. Then Prabhupada gave them the idea, rent out these flats, right? They rented them to devotees. With the rent from that, those flats, right? You make the down payment on another building. And with that rent, you pay the installment, the EMI, they call it in India, right? Like that, they got 4 or 5 buildings, right? In Los Angeles. And today, those properties are worth millions of dollars. Srila Prabhupada's expert, very expert, right? One of the qualities of Krishna is that he's expert. So, in order to appreciate Srila Prabhupada, we celebrate his Vyas Puja, we celebrate Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, and the devotees remember the qualities of Srila Prabhupada. Why? Because the mercy flows from Krishna through his pure devotee. When we render service to the pure devotee, then we become qualified to be a recipient of the mercy of Krishna. Otherwise, why Krishna will give us mercy? Right? We have so many unwanted anarthas in the heart. Even devotees that are chanting for years and years, still they have some idea, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. Hare, Krishna knows everything, what desire we have. We are reminded by Krishna as the Paramatma what is our desire. Mata smritir Krishna smriti. Right? Yes, he gives us knowledge. He reminds us of our material desires. He knows our desires better than we do. The pigeons. We got to get some more sparrows. Anyway, he reminds us of our desires. So he knows our desire. Our business is to understand that our material desires, they need to be weeded out. Right? Weeded out. Just like weeds in the garden. The garden grows, but the weeds grow faster than the flowers and the fruits. Right? So if you don't weed the garden, the weeds will overgrow the flowers and the fruits. So the gardener has to pick out the weeds. Devotional service is a kind of cultivation. It's a cultivation, right? we cultivate the garden. We keep the weeds out. We make sure there's proper watering, right? If you let the weeds overgrow the garden, what happens when you're watering? What happens with the watering? You may be watering, but you're watering the weeds, right? And the weeds can be so significant that we mistake the weeds for being the flowers. We can mistake the weeds for being the flowers, right? We're doing the watering process, hearing, chanting, associating with devotees, right? But because we haven't carefully took out the unwanted things, the anarthas, recognized the anarthas, therefore we mistake the anarthas for actually being the creeper of devotional service. So it's a science. Srila Rupa Goswami has given us in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that Srila Prabhupada summarized for us to understand the science of Bhakti Yoga. Srila Prabhupada in 1972, at that time ISKCON did not have a center. So in the Radha Damodar temple every day, Srila Prabhupada was giving lecture on the nectar devotion to the devotees. So it's a very important book for us all to study and understand the nectar devotion. It can help us in our progress on the path of devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, which is the purpose of why we're here. The purpose for rendering devotional service and being in association with the devotees is that we come to the platform of pure devotional service. We're not here for any other reason. Right? So I'll stop there. And if there's any questions or comments, we can have them now.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice class. I'm glad I stayed for it. In the very beginning, we were hearing how generally women take to Krishna consciousness more readily, or to spiritual affairs or temple affairs. But in ISKCON, that doesn't seem to be the case. Wherever I go, especially in India, I see the men are outnumber the women, and they're so enthusiastic, and the women are kind of a little bit regulated to the back. But how is it that that's the case?
I never did a count, but I guess just by casual observation. But sometimes it seems like there's just as many ladies as there is men in the temple, as far as I can see.
If we do a count just from Prabhupada, he initiated twice as many men as he did women.
Really?
That's counted, yeah. And we see it. I mean, especially in India, there's at least twice as many men in the kirtan, enthusiastic, jumping, screaming. The women are also taking part. We don't deny that. But still, they're not predominant. So anyway, I think I have the answer, in my opinion, is that they can come, but to take it real seriously, you have to be smart, and men are a little smarter. Women, naturally, they're going to be more care about their family. And so they're not ready to take sannyas. They're not ready, they're not given sannyas. Because it's an advantage to have a man's body.
Yeah, the Prabhupada explained that women's place is in the home, taking care of the family. And of course, there's a lot of You know, if you turn the treble all the way down and the bass all the way up, you won't get that feedback. Treble all the way down, bass all the way up. I learned that from playing the guitar and rock and roll, you know. So, yeah, Prabhupada taught ladies' position is in the home and taking care of the family. And family is the very basis of society, right? The first guru of children are mothers. They teach children everything comes from the mother. So, yeah, they're attracted by that. They're meant to be attracted like that. That's their position. But we see a lot of advertisement in society for, you know, women to be in competition with men, to break the glass ceiling and be a CEO of a company. But it tends to break down the very basic unit of society, and that's the family, right? The family unit. Srila Prabhupada, he was concerned about that. That's why he wanted our devotees to try to begin Varnashram by living off the land. And that's what he wanted householders to do, was to have land and take the necessities from the land and be off the grid, so to speak. Right? So I agree with you. And ISKCON has, especially in India, made a lot of temples, and that's okay. But we haven't been so successful in making self-sufficient farm communities. It's a big first step in the establishment of Varnashram. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada, that was mentioned yesterday by Abhiram, what did he say? Prabhupada had one regret, that he hadn't established Varnashram. Because it's not that everybody's going to chant Hare Krishna. And like you said, ladies are busy with other things, and, you know, it's hard for them to get to the temple. Their parents are also, especially in India, very concerned about where they go and what they do, and rightly so, right? But in order to, and Prabhupada was coming actually, I had been traded for one devotee who wanted to come to America, and I wanted to go to India, so I was traded to Gargamuni's library party for one devotee named Janapavanu who wanted to come back to America. So that time I was in Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party, and the telegram came, send Bhima Das immediately, signed Tamal Krishna. So that was it. I was on my way to India. And I got to New York, and then I heard that Srila Prabhupada was coming to New York. This was 1977, right just after Janmashtami or Radhastami. Well, we're getting the sparrows back. See, the pigeons gone. So Prabhupada was coming. Srila Prabhupada was coming to New York. So I canceled my trip to India because he was coming here. But then just after a few days later, I realized that he had canceled his trip to America. And what he was going to do was, just like he told Abhiram, he was going to sit in Gitanagari and teach people how to be self-sufficient and live off the land. That's what he was going to do. He's going to teach the devotees how to live off the land, be off the grid, so to speak. So when I heard that, then I took a flight to London. In those days, they had these cheap flights called Freddie Lakers flights. It was a no-frills airline. For a few very cheap price, $70, you could fly to London. Then in London, I got a ticket and came to Bombay And Nathji's, yesterday, Nathji was speaking about how he drove his Dodge car and took Prabhupada to the train station, right? So it's pertinent to me, for me, because that was the same time that I came to India. I'd been before, but to stay in 1977. So that date that he gave that Prabhupada left was September 28th, 1977. And it's interesting that I remember that time because Srila Prabhupada was going to go to Vrindavan by train, Mathura and then Vrindavan. And that morning we cooked for him. We cooked for the whole entourage. And we made kachoris. Nrsimha Chaitanya Prabhu from California, he made kachoris. I made guava chutney. And different devotees made different things from early in the morning for Prabhupada's trip from Bombay to Vrindavan, his last trip. We didn't know that at the time, but it was his last trip. And Nathji Prabhu brought his car. So after I cooked, Prabhupada had to leave about 9 o'clock. We had been cooking since 5 in the morning. So I went back up to the BBT where we all were staying at that time. And I took a little rest, and then I thought I'll come down when Prabhupada leaves. I'll be there when he goes, right? Well, I was taking rest. I got up, and then I went to open the door. And, in India, at least in those days, they had 2 doors that closed. And from outside, you could put a, what do they call it? Latch, kari, right? So somebody had put the latch, and I was stuck inside. And I was thinking, now what is ground plus 2, right? So I went to the balcony. I looked down. I thought maybe I should jump. It might be the last time that I see Srila Prabhupada. But then I thought, well, maybe I better not jump. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada was and we went on traveling Sankirtan, library party, selling sets to different colleges, delivering the standing orders all the way through Gujarat. We got up to Ahmedabad. I met Yasomati Nandan Prabhu for the first time in Ahmedabad, and then we went to Vrindavan. So in Vrindavan, many things happened. That time Prabhupada was sick. Now it's almost mid-October or towards the end of October at that time, 1977. So it wasn't some weeks before Srila Prabhupada disappeared. So we had some interesting association with Srila Prabhupada at that time in Vrindavan. I remember being alone in the room with just Srila Prabhupada and Tamal Krishna Maharaj and myself. So I was sitting on the floor, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was talking to Srila Prabhupada. And he said to Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, we've checked with the astrologer, and if you just make it through this period, you'll live for another 20 years. And Prabhupada said, who wants to live like this? And Tamal said, no, Prabhupada, you're going to get better. And Prabhupada went, Now, whenever Prabhupada did that, it was kind of like an earthquake or thunder, or it went right into the heart, right into the heart. So Prabhupada was very clear about what was happening. And but anyway, so many other things happened there. I was sent out to get 1,000 Tulsi leaves from one particular temple that the Kaviraj wanted for Srila Prabhupada's medicine. Right? And I was new to India. I didn't know how to speak Hindi. I was just roaming around the streets of Vrindavan, finally I got to the place. I got the 1,000 Tulsi leaves. I gave them to the Kavi Raj. And he took them and he just touched Prabhupada's hand with it. That's all he did. Touched Prabhupada's hand and gave Prabhupada some herbs. And the next day, Prabhupada's heart was pumping better. He was feeling much better. And then 2 days later, he was the same. So, like that, so many things were happening there in Vrindavan at the end. But the most significant for me that happened right at Srila Prabhupada's departure was that I was a new man on the library party, so I didn't have much to say. The two senior devotees, Bir Singha Prabhu and Nrsimha Chaitanya from California, one of them felt that we should go out and do the libraries again, go back and get our van and travel. The other one said, no, we should be here with Prabhupada. So there was a conflict. So we went to Satsvarup Maharaj, who was the leader of the North American BBT Library Party. And he suggested, why don't you work the libraries during the week around Vrindavan, and on the weekend you can be with Prabhupada. Kind of a compromise, So that was decided that's what we would do. And I got picked to go back and get the van with Nrsimha Chaitanya Prabhu. So this was Govardhan Puja night. Govardhan Puja was just over. I went into Srila Prabhupada's room, and I remember I was offering my obeisances, and I was thinking, oh, Srila Prabhupada's okay. He'll be here with us. I can go and come back. And just then, when I was thinking like that, Bhavananda was there. And see, Srila Prabhupada didn't have any taste on his tongue. And time to time, he would try to, mostly didn't eat anything, but he would try to eat something to see if there was any taste. So just then, they had brought some chanachur, right? Chanachur. And he chewed it a little bit. There was no taste. He spit it back into the katori. Bhavananda turned around to me just as I was getting up from offering my obeisances, and he gave me that Mahaprasad. So that might have been the last thing that Srila Prabhupada ate on the planet. I don't know. But I felt benedicted, And I felt that this is what Prabhupada wanted me to do. Work for the BBT, distribute books, organize book distribution. I've been trying to do that since. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Mataji in the back. Microphone. It's way in the back. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. See how fast you can get it there. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I just wanted to express my appreciation of Srila Prabhupada. Somehow yesterday there was no time for it. I recently read from the Chaitanya Charitamrita the incident of the Chankazi, and how the whole incident of how they were stopping the Sankirtan movement, and how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just stood up and said, now we'll deal with this Kazi. And though I have read and heard this story many times, but the details escape me. And the specific detail is that Prabhupada in the purport wrote that when the Kazi was ruling India, then the Hindus could no longer practice their, what we call their religion. And so Prabhupada gave the example of how, with the division, India and Pakistan, the Hindus who are in Pakistan could no longer practice their religion. And in India, the entire Hindu religion became simply social customs and religious formulas. But then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with his movement, he revived the whole practice of Krishna consciousness. And the Qazi was so angry. He said, how dare you? How is it that now the Hindus are again practicing their philosophy, their religion? And just a few days back when I was sitting here during the...
And it was the Brahmins, the smartest, that put it in the Qazi's ear. See what they're doing? They're chanting. They were envious of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, so just a few days back when I was singing in Damodara Stakam, suddenly I remembered something from my childhood. We studied Hindi in school, and there was one word, kirtan. And I've never heard the word kirtan. So I asked my Hindi teacher, what is the meaning of kirtan? And he was trying to explain to me what is the meaning of kirtan. And when I grew up, I came in touch with ISKCON, and I became part of kirtan. And I connected the two. How is it that being born Hindu, I knew nothing about what is kirtan, what is the practice of Krishna consciousness, and that Srila Prabhupada, he took the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so boldly and in a very strategic way. He moved from India to the West. From the West, he spread the Krishna consciousness movement, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement, all over the world. And today I'm sitting and practicing Krishna consciousness. This was my, I was amazed that this is what Srila Prabhupada has done for all of us.
Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki. Anything else? Here's a question right over here.
First of all, thank you. It was a very good, very well session. Very good session for me as well. I happened to be here in the temple and I just sat here. It felt like just sitting here. So I just sat and it was a great session which you just took. Now, when you're talking about being humble, try to be a little away from the material world. Now, one thing, and I would not say I'm new to spirituality. I've been practicing some of these things. But being a father, being a son, being a husband, it's not for just me, right? You would really want to be giving the best to your parents, to your children, to your wife. How do you practice that going away from materialist world? Because technically you are living here, you have to do a lot of things to try to achieve that much so that you can give back to your own loved ones. How do you differentiate and how do you move in the way the spiritual world? Because you technically, while you would want to be in the Krishna consciousness, and I would really want to be, but at the same time, I would really want my family to be with me. I just love them like anything. So how do you do and differentiate, and what are the things which you have to practice to get into that line?
So it's a balancing act to balance your material responsibilities and your own spiritual progress. It's a balancing act. But just like in any field, I don't know what field you're in, but there's association of diamond merchants, there's association of transport companies. They have these associations because it helps them in their particular field to have that kind of association, right? So the same thing. In household life, there are so many responsibilities, so many pressures are there, education of the children and your family members, her family members, so many social responsibilities. It's time consuming. But there are householders who live outside and have gone through the same experiences, and at the same time maintain a level of Krishna consciousness. So again, it's association. And by that association, one can get some best practices, some tips, how to take care of your responsibilities for the people that you love, your children, your wife, etc. And at the same time, develop your love for Krishna. It's not an antithesis to each other. It can be blended and harmonized very nicely. And it takes association in order to get there. Is that okay? Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.